Welcome to the Spirituality What? Podcast, where we explore the mysteries, joys, and challenges of being spiritual beings navigating our unpredictable human experience we call life here on planet Earth. I'm your friendly guide, Rebecca, ready to jump into our adventure of the day. Welcome to another exciting episode on the Spirituality What? Podcast. Rebecca here, and very happy to have you back this week and to also finish our episode with Hronn and talking about yoga as spiritual beings. In this episode, we're going to get into the understanding of the 6 layers of self-identification as these comprehensive beings that we are, ego recognition, talking a little bit about how to shift our prescription or our perspective on life, and get into the nitty-gritty on tips of actually starting a yoga practice and the benefits of yoga retreats. And you guys are even going to hear about a little bit of a spiritual story and experience that I had in one of Hronn's classes on a retreat. So here we go. So you talked a little bit about the different types of yoga and the flow, the asana and the breathing and all of that. And you also talked, we did already talk a little bit about the ego. And so I want to kind of bring this back into the conversation because you were talking about presence and attention and control. And what I wrote on my notes was the illusion of control, right? So that's what our brain kind of brings in. And so how does Rasa yoga, or the practice of yoga that you do and what sort of yoga is to you, break down the ego or break down control or accept lack of control or sort of whatever that resolution is there, but how does that work in your practice?
So I think that one of the ways that I've kind of worked with it is through one of the teachings from the tantric philosophy. It talks about the human being being on 5 different levels. So the model is like the 5-layered self.
Okay.
And so it talks about it actually sometimes it talks about the 6th layer. And the 6th layer is like these are layers of identification, the layers that we come to identify with. So the 6th layer is like all your stuff. So it's your house, it's your car, okay. It's, I'm that kind of person that has, expensive, whatever. Then the 2nd layer is your body, the physical body. And so many of us identify with, I am the body. And then we go a little deeper, and then we find the mind or the thoughts and the emotions. And we identify with, we can live in our thought processes our whole life, or also be at the mercy of our emotions. Like I don't feel like it, or I really feel like it,
Yep.
So this is like, so we're on layer 3. And then as we go deeper, we meet the pranic layer, which is the life force energy. That is so that becomes gradually more subtle, those layers. So moving from the most dense, where we can, feel and see and its manifested form, and moving into those more subtle. And the pranic layer is our breath. It's the energy that the breath brings with it. The energy that can be sometimes heavy, it can be light. And we can use pranayama, the invoking the life force, to elevate the energy or to bring ourselves, calm ourselves down. So we can also identify with this layer by saying, oh, I'm so tired, or I'm filled with energy. I'm just really excited about this, And then, so this is the 4th layer. And then as we go down to the last layer is called chit. And that's the most subtle. It's your consciousness, it's your heart.
Okay.
So at that layer, this center layer kind of permeates all the others. So yes, you're the body. Yes, you are your mind and your emotions. Yes, you are the prana. Yes, you are. Oh, I forgot. There's the 5th one, which is the void.
The void.
Which is the emptiness.
Okay.
Yeah, the void. That's the complete silence. which sometimes we can connect to. And then at the bottom of that is the chit. So we're moving from the outer to the inner, but the center layer of the heart permeates all the other ones. So you can only you can experience your chit, your consciousness, your heart, the essence nature through the body, through the prana, through the mind and the emotions. But without, so recognizing that you are so much more than your body,
just what you can see,
your thoughts. Yeah, exactly. And that they can kind of so the ego is kind of it's like in the mind. Yep. And when you start to think about yourself as this composite being, you're not just this or that, you're actually so much more. It becomes easier just to accept this. Yes, the ego is a part of all of it. And sometimes it's necessary to have an ego to live in this world. We have to recognize our boundaries. We have to be able to discern, and all of that and it's great to have ambition. It's great to long to do something.
Absolutely.
What our work in this life is to figure out, okay, what of this is sustainable? What is really bringing forth the best of me? And what is just, making myself feel good about myself for the only reason of feeling good about myself?
What is stroking my ego versus actually doing some good?
Yeah. And I had a really cool. I have had several cool experiences with, recognizing that this is what's going on. When the ego just goes, poof,
yeah.
Oh, and it happened very often in my beginning years as a teacher, because people could come up to me and they would say, I love your teaching. This was an amazing class. And I could just feel like,
you're like, yes, I am amazing. Thank you very much.
Exactly. And then, wait a minute.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Now I recognize that what is actually happening is that people are ready to receive. They have just been, awake, and they have been waiting for, or this message, whatever I was teaching, just had a clear passageway into their hearts somehow. And that's not me. That's spirit. That's the highest.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. You never know if it's going to happen or not.
Absolutely. That's very true. And I think you bring up a really interesting point there about ready to receive and sort of ready in general, because it's interesting when we talk about on this podcast these more physical things that we're doing, like sports and yoga and things that you're actually moving, walking in nature, moving with your body. There is that additional layer of readiness to have a greater experience than just that physical experience, because you can go to a Rasa yoga class, I'm sure, and still just be like, yeah, this is like stretching, like my muscles feel good without having that deeper connection. It's definitely possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's really just all about where that person is and whether they're in the mood, in the moment, in the mindset, in the space to have a larger experience.
Yeah. And there's so much of how we are, this programming, conditioning, whatever we can call it, is, how people also tend to define themselves in these small boxes. I don't do this, or I cannot do this. I'm 50 plus. I cannot, all of this. And I always try to challenge that notion of, instead of because words have so much power.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, as you know, working with language and translation and all of that is like, it really matters how you say things and what you name them. So instead of saying, I cannot do this, what if we just shifted it and said, I'm going to do my best?
I'm going to not be perfect. Whatever that means anyway, right? I'm just going to try.
Is, what I'm able to right now, I'm just going to try, and I'm going to do my best. I'm not going to continue this putting myself down because, maybe we cannot stand on our hands in the middle of the room, freestanding handstand or whatever arm balance that could be up on the pallet. But okay, what can I do? And connect to that instead of what we can't do. I think it's just, and that's all about that. That's really tantric way of changing your perspective. The world is as you see it, so why don't you change the prescription of your glasses?
Yeah.
It's like,
I like that. Yeah.
it's one of the teachings is that's like you, okay, if I take my glasses off, I cannot really see as clearly.
and
But
for
I
those
might be
that on the
able to
podcast, Hronn is wearing glasses, so that's why this is
yeah.
relevant. I
Yeah. So, yeah.
I really like that. So if there is somebody out there who's like, oh man, this is a lot. Like yoga sounds like a
Yeah.
lot. Like I was interested in goat yoga or whatever. And now I'm like, ooh, yoga's a lot. Like how would you recommend somebody who might be having limiting beliefs about themselves or might be in a competitive, maybe sort of egoic mindset? And there's nothing, also just really clearly for listeners, there is nothing wrong with being in these places.
No.
As Hronn said, like we're all everywhere when we need to be and where we need to be in order to get to our path in this life. So that there's no judgment here, but the question is, how would you recommend somebody start if they don't have a yoga practice or a breathing practice? Like it sounds intimidating. Like I've done yoga before and I'm one of those people where I'm like, I am just not a flexible body. I can connect, but I just do not have a lot of stretchy muscles. So like, it's okay. And I'm past that now too, but how should somebody start if they were looking at a yoga practice?
Yeah. I think that the key is simply to start wherever you are.
Take the step
just take and find a friend or go by yourself, go somewhere where you have maybe you've been invited to come, maybe it's a studio that it's on your street, it's close by. Make it accessible, so you don't try to put it in your calendar and set off, I'm going to do 3 hours of yoga every week. Just start with showing up, maybe even online. I mean, there is myriads of practices to choose online.
That's true. We do have that now.
Yeah, we do. We have so much access, which I think is in many ways very good, because it makes it really accessible for so many people who cannot go to a studio, and there are not studios everywhere. But I think it's really, if you have that longing to do something good for your body, and you might need a little boost for I was going to say ego, because in the beginning, you feel really good when you've done some yoga.
Yeah.
When you've moved and you've breathed in a group of people, you will feel good.
Yeah.
It will make you feel good, even though you cannot. You have this idea, I'm not flexible. That's like one of the greatest misconceptions of yoga, ever, that you have to be flexible to do yoga.
You don't. You really don't. Like, it's so nice. There's like blocks and all kinds of modifications. It's great.
Exactly.
I mean, Hronn is probably the most flexible person I've ever met in my whole life. But
well, thank you. But that's okay.
Comes with practice, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I just want to say, just start. If there is this longing, this kind of an itch, there's like, oh, I want to try something else, and just maybe, because many people find like a movement practice that they just stick to forever. Like it's running, either it's running or it's, going to the gym. It's so often that we just stay with it. But if there's a yoga in your fitness or your gym, if there's yoga wherever, just go and try it out, and then know that when you've tried it out once, it doesn't say anything about how it can be,
right?
Because there are so many different, it depends on the teacher, it depends on the studio, the energy that is in the space, it depends on how you are feeling on the day. Take the step. It's not simple, but it's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah,
it's very simple.
Yeah. And I would say from my personal experience, so I mentioned restorative yoga a little bit earlier on this episode. And that to me is just like the calmest sort of yoga. It's more about stretching. I think if I'm sort of, it's been a while since I've done some yoga, but it's for me, it's just more about the breath and the connection and like relaxing and calming my heart down and calming my crazy mind. And so for me, that was the particular type of yoga that I was, especially when I lived in Denmark, when you were my teacher, that was the yoga that I was really kind of attaching to, because I was like just needing help. And the flow, the vinyasa and all of that, it was too much. It was too alive. And I was like, it's not like I'm asking to be dead, but I need something like to calm things down. And so that for me, restorative yoga was that.
And I think that's a really good thing that people can think about, because what do they have in our lives? Do they have a lot of fast-paced stuff? Is it like always moving on to the next thing? Then a vinyasa practice might not be what you want to do, where you're constantly moving from one pose to the other, but you actually might want to go to the more gentle, more restorative, where you have the ability to calm down. You train your nervous system to be resilient, so it's not always in the high alert.
Right, exactly.
And for so many people today in this modern world, we need more of that,
calming,
downward regulation. Because we have no idea how to do it. It's it's innately, the body can do it with help from the breath and with our attention. But if we are constantly running, and most of us are simply on high alert, we are in this kind of state of flight or flight all the time.
Exactly.
So that's one advice that I would bring forth, is that think about what do you have in your life, and then do not do more of what you have, do something else. Do the opposite, because that will bring balance.
Exactly. And that's a good thing to mention as well, as like the time of day. If you're trying to like build up to a great day, maybe you do need to bring in some vinyasa energy as well. And it's just something as you do more and more. And so my recommendation is like, try every kind of yoga class you can find, because as you said, it's all so different. You're so different every time you do it. The day is different. The energy around the people in the class are different. Like you might have a totally different experience in the same studio with the same people in your class at the same time of day, with just a different teacher, just a different instructor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking a lot about the classes, and I want to make sure we talk a little bit about retreats, because you are an awesome retreat leader as well, and you hold some really cool retreats. So what is the benefit of a retreat space as opposed to a weekly or bi-weekly or whatever sort of studio space when it comes to the yoga practice and the spiritual connection?
Yeah. Well, I have a really good example from one of my participants from the last retreat I did in November, which was in Iceland, where I actually do retreats about once or twice a year. It's kind of becoming more like a once a year thing.
Okay.
But then she was talking about, so we have like 4 days where there's a lot of yoga. We meditate in the morning for about an hour, do breath work, and then there is breakfast. Then we go do physical practice for 2.5 hours. Then we have lunch, and then there's sightseeing. Then we have yoga again, which is more gentle, focused on the connective tissue and more of a restorative type practice. And then we have dinner, and then it goes to bed. And this is repeated like over 3-4 days, 4 or 5 days sometimes. What she was saying to me the other day, that it just boosted the experience of yoga being so much more, and that she really felt kind of catapulted into a whole new experience of being, of taking the regular classes, because we have time to do, we have time to chant, we have time to do breath work, we have also time to meditate, and we have time to do a prolonged practice where we can look at the details of the poses, and you start to become more confident in, the way your body likes to move.
True.
So all of that can you bring with you in your regular classes, which feel, after doing a class of 2.5 hours, 75 minutes feels like, like, what are we done?
Absolutely. Well, and it takes us back to that attention and focus. Like if you're on a retreat, that's what you're there to do, right? You don't have to go to the grocery.
Exactly.
You don't have all these sort of other life things. So you're able to be more present.
Absolutely. And that is really the aim of, of going away I mean, that is one part of the one lineage of yoga was the ascetic practices where you left your
Okay.
normal life, you left everything, you renunciate. That's kind of the ascetic path, is to renounce everything, and you have no material belongings, and you go live in a cave, which does not really work for a modern human being.
Totally.
Because we have jobs, we have families, we have responsibilities. We do not renunciate everything. We might want to renunciate some of our material stuff. I'm not saying that
Sure.
can't be
Totally.
a good thing.
Yeah.
But and so this is like that's the path of the tantric practices. That is the householder, figuring out how can I, in my way of being in the world, through my work, through my relationships, how can I be in connection with the divine and recognize that the divine is everywhere. So to be able to move away from the daily chores and your responsibilities brings you kind of closer to the essence. And when you come back, you might have had the realization that this is not important, this is not important, this is important. So I think it's really important for us to take time sometimes away, to just be with ourselves and to be guided. I think some people might be able to do it by themselves, go into nature and
Totally.
take a long hike,
Yep.
or walk, but also to have somebody that guides you into different ways of looking at yourself and how you're being in the world can be really helpful. Because when you come home, you realize that there is that sometimes you just fill our days and our lives with so much unnecessary things.
Yep.
That we forget about what is really important. What is it that I really, really want to have,
Yep.
and to hold and to cherish?
Yeah, you have a new baseline. You have a new prescription, if you will. I think even
Absolutely.
after just a few days
Exactly.
in a retreat. And in preparation for this podcast, I told Hronn a little bit about my spiritual experience actually at sort of the beginning at one of her retreats. So I think it was 2018, I took a girlfriend of mine and we went to the summer Iceland retreat. And it was a little bit of a tumultuous time personally in my life. And I was doing CrossFit at the time. So I was pretty fit. Like I just looking at the pictures on the website and saw the one of me doing the handstand. And I was like, oh my God, that's right. I had like strong shoulders and strong arms and stuff at that point. And I want to say it was pretty close to the last day. We were in child's pose, kind of finishing, I would probably one of the restorative ones. And I got this visualization sort of behind my eyes, like when I was just kind of laying there, and it was this really, really electric green and this like royal electric blue color. And I'd never seen those colors. And it was like a basket weave kind of pattern. And it was there for a good few minutes while we were kind of finishing up. And when I came out of child's pose and we were kind of finished and I opened my eyes and closed my eyes again, I could still see it. Like it was kind of burned into my head. And I didn't realize at the time, but now I know, because I've done a lot of work since that retreat, and that retreat probably really was sort of the beginning of the work that I was doing, is that those two colors, I'm getting goosebumps again. I pretty much get goosebumps on every single episode of this podcast. But those two colors appear to me now when I am connected and relaxed and sort of more grounded. I would say they're like a friend now, as opposed to something sort of surprising. And I can, when I'm having energy work done, even I can see when the energy is all crazy as it starts to get more calm, that blue and that green kind of come into my space. So I'm a full, I mean, retreats, there is a commitment there from a time and a financial perspective, but I fully agree with that catapulting into another space, even just a couple of days, it doesn't have to be a week-long thing, but just the time and the space to separate from regular life.
Yeah, Oh, thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that.
I love.
And that's the beauty of it, because I have no idea what's happening in people.
Yeah, right? Until they
And
tell
I'm
you.
just so grateful.
And it's
Yeah,
like,
until they
you
tell you, I'm
helped
like,
guide
whoa.
me to this place. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Amazing.
And I really enjoyed. So Hronn lived really close to where I was living when I lived in Denmark. I could easily bike to her house for, I think it was once or twice a week, maybe at least once a week, that I was kind of doing yoga.
Yeah.
She's got a really cute studio in the basement of her house, and it's just like really intimate. And I guess it was maybe when you were doing the training, it was like 2014, 2015 timeframe.
Yeah,
So it was kind
exactly.
of right
Yeah.
around when you
Yeah,
were
exactly.
doing that
Yeah. Yeah,
training.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Great.
this has been just an amazing episode today, Hronn. And so I want to finish us out with one last question, which is, what's one tip about living as a spiritual being in this human existence that you'd like to share with the listeners?
So I think I want to share something just very simple, that to remember to take the time to connect to your heart in whatever shape or form that feels natural to you. I like to place my hands on my heart and just close my eyes for a moment and just ask, what is alive within me? And just that inner connection really awakens a different way of them stepping into my day, or being with others. And I mean, this can be done anytime, anywhere. You don't need anything. You don't need to set up a space. You can simply pause, hold, connect. The hands are really great, because that visceral connection, that physical connection with your body, brings warmth, and it brings your awareness automatically directly into the heart space if your hands are there. And breathe a few breaths and ask, what is alive within me right now? I think that is, maybe what I would suggest.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to just add on that I had a girlfriend tell me one time, in her sort of connection, and I've used this before in like traffic, she just is like, I love you. And it's like, it starts as like, it starts as this aggressive, like, I love you, like, get out of my way, but then it becomes that she just keeps saying it over. And so it's more of a verbal connection point, but it's a very similar thing.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Hronn, for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Rebecca. I really wish the best for this podcast, that it comes out wide over the world and people get inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
And there we have it, folks. What an awesome episode. I love Hronn. She's such an amazing person. I did forget on the episode to ask her how you guys could contact her, so you'll see the show notes. She is on Instagram, Yoga4Courage. And then she's also has a website, YACEP.com. The 4 is the number 4 instead of spelled out. I will include all of that, as I said, in the show notes. And then also, if you're interested in an international yoga retreat, or you've always wanted to go to Iceland, definitely check out her yoga retreats. They are super fun. I'm hoping to get back eventually to do the Iceland one in the winter time, obviously when you can see the aurora borealis. I think that would be awesome. And thanks everybody for joining this week. Please follow our podcast and tell all of your friends. We're very excited about the stories and the messages that we're sharing, and want to make sure to share it with the rest of the world. See you next week. Thank you for joining me on today's Spirituality What? Adventure. Subscribe, rate, review, and share this podcast. Visit us on Instagram at spirituality.what to interact, tell us what spirituality means to you, and even provide some of your own personal musings. Human on, you phenomenal spiritual beings.